Welcome to the deep dive. This is where your curiosity meets our expertise. You send us the sources you're interested in.
And we dig through them, pull out the key insights, basically help you get well-informed fast.
Exactly. And today we're diving into, well, the really interesting world of habit formation and change.
Yeah, this is all based on the excerpts you sent from James Clear's Atomic Habits, a very popular book.
Definitely. So our mission here is pretty straightforward. Give you, our listener, some really actionable knowledge. Stuff you can use, understanding how habits actually work so you can leverage that for personal growth.
And it's worth mentioning Clear's own backstory, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He went from this, really devastating injury that completely sidelined his baseball career.
To becoming an academic All-American. It's quite the turnaround.
It really is. And then, becoming this go-to expert on habits. It just shows the power of those small, consistent improvements he talks about.
And the book itself, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It actually grew from his online articles, right?
Yeah, he built this audience online, shared his ideas, got feedback.
And it clearly resonated with a lot of people, built momentum organically.
Okay, so let's jump in. The first really big idea, and it almost feels, wrong somehow,
Yeah.
is just how powerful tiny habits are. Those small, 1% improvements or even 1% declines.
Right. They compound. Over time, the effect is massive. It's not always obvious day to day.
Exactly. Think about saving just a little money each day, or doing just a few minutes of exercise, or maybe learning one new vocabulary word.
Or even the opposite, like letting clutter build up just a little bit each day.
Right. Those tiny actions, consistently done, they really do shape who you become and, well, your environment too.
And this leads straight into Clear's idea of the plateau of latent potential and the related valley of disappointment.
Okay, explain that a bit. The plateau.
So, when you feel like you're putting in all this effort, maybe into a new skill or a fitness goal, but you're just not seeing the results?
Yeah, definitely felt that. It's frustrating.
That's often this plateau. Your effort isn't wasted. It's actually accumulating, potential energy building up.
Okay, so progress is happening just under the surface.
Precisely. He uses the analogy of an ice cube. Imagine heating it from, say, 25 degrees up to 31 degrees.
Nothing visible happens. Still ice.
Right. You're adding energy, putting in the work, but no melting. Then, boom, you hit 32 degrees.
And it starts to melt. All that stored energy pays off.
Exactly. So don't mistake that lack of visible progress for a lack of actual progress. The breakthrough often comes after that period of unseen work.
That makes so much sense. And it explains why overnight success is, well, usually not overnight at all.
Almost never. It's the result of all those little steps, that accumulated effort finally breaking through the plateau.
Which kind of brings us neatly to the next point.
Yeah.
Systems versus goals. This is another slightly counterintuitive one for me.
Yeah, we're always told, set big goals, smart goals. But Clear argues focusing on your systems, the actual processes you follow day to day, is more effective long term.
Right. And he points out a potential downside to being too goal-focused. It can actually, restrict your happiness.
How so?
Well, you're always postponing feeling good until you hit that finish line. It creates this either-or conflict. Either I achieve the goal and I'm happy, or I don't, and I'm a failure.
That's a really good point. It ties happiness to a single moment in the future, rather than the process itself.
And then he takes it even deeper with identity-based habits. This was fascinating.
Yes. Shifting from what you want to achieve to who you want to become.
Exactly. The idea is that our behaviors are often just reflections of our underlying identity, who we believe we are.
Whether we consciously think about it or not.
Right. The example he gives is great someone who focuses on being a voter versus someone who just has voting as a goal.
The person who identifies as a voter, they're much more likely to actually vote, right?
Because it's part of their self-image. It aligns with who they are. So doing the habit feels natural, almost effortless.
And that creates this feedback loop, doesn't it? Your habits reinforce the identity.
And the identity makes it easier to stick with the habits. It's about becoming a certain type of person.
Yeah, not just chasing an outcome. It's a more fundamental shift.
Okay, so that's kind of the why in the mindset shift. Let's get practical now. Let's talk about the how. Clear breaks down habit formation into 4 key stages.
The 4 laws of behavior change. Cue. Craving, response, reward. This is the backbone of every habit.
Can you walk us through those quickly? The cue is?
The cue is the trigger. It's the little piece of information that tells your brain, hey, there's a potential reward here, maybe initiate this behavior.
Okay, trigger. Then the craving.
That's the motivation, the driving force. Importantly, you don't usually crave the habit itself, but the change in state it brings, the feeling.
Got it. And the response.
That's the actual habit. Could be a thought, could be an action.
Right. And finally, the reward.
The reward satisfies that initial craving, and crucially, it teaches your brain, hey, that sequence cue, craving response, that was good. Let's remember that for next time.
And the key thing is, if any one of those four is weak or missing,
the habit just won't stick. No cue, habit never starts, no craving, no motivation. Response too hard, you won't do it. Reward unsatisfying, why bother repeating it?
it makes sense. It's a complete loop.
No.
Okay. Law 1, make it obvious. This is about the cue.
Exactly, cues kick things off. But the tricky part is, over time, they become almost invisible. They just blend into the background.
Like the snacks you mentioned on the counter, or the TV remote just sitting there, your phone.
Totally. They become so automatic you don't even consciously register them as triggers anymore. The urge just seems to appear.
Which is why awareness is so critical. You can't change what you don't notice.
Right. Clear quotes Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Powerful stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do we become more aware?
Well, one tool he suggests is the habits scorecard. Just literally listing out your daily habits, good, bad, neutral, to bring them into the light.
Just seeing them written down.
Exactly. He also mentions this technique from the Japanese railway system, pointing and calling.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Operators physically point at signals and call out their status, like signal is green. It forces awareness, reduces errors. You could adapt that, verbally acknowledging your own actions or cues.
Interesting. And then there are ways to actively make the good cues more obvious.
Right. Huh? Definitely. One is using implementation intentions. This is about being super specific with your plan.
Not just, I'll exercise more, but
I will behavior go for a 30-minute walk at time 6 p.m. in location the park near my house. That specificity links the intention to a clear context.
Makes it harder to forget or put off.
Much harder. Another great one is habit stacking.
Okay, stacking, like building blocks?
Sort of. You attach a new habit you want to form onto an existing habit you already do automatically. The formula is simple. After current habit, I will new habit.
Ah, so you use the old habit as the cue for the new one.
Precisely. Like after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will change into my workout clothes.
You piggyback on existing routines. Clever.
Very effective. And then, of course, there's the environment itself. This is huge.
Right. Lewin's equation. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. B equals FBE.
Yeah. The context, the environment, often becomes the cue. Our surroundings shape our actions more than we realize.
Which explains why sometimes starting a new habit is easier when you're in a completely new place, like on vacation or after moving.
Exactly. You're escaping the old triggers, the old environmental cues that were associated with your previous habits.
So the practical takeaway is,
yeah,
deliberately design your environment to make good cues obvious.
Yes. Leave your running shoes by the door. Put your vitamins next to the coffee maker. Place the book you want to read on your pillow.
Small changes, big impact.
And conversely, try to make cues for bad habits less visible. He also mentions the idea of one space, one use.
Like don't work in bed.
Basically. Try not to mix the context for different types of habits. He talks about setting up a dedicated office space finally helped him separate work life from home life. Clear boundaries.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's making the cue obvious. Law 2 is make it attractive. This is the craving part.
Right. Habits get sticky when they're associated with positive feelings, so we need to make the good habits more appealing.
How do we do that?
One strategy is temptation bundling. This is where you pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Okay, give me an example.
Like, you only allow yourself to watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the exercise bike.
Linking the want the show with the should exercise.
Exactly. The enjoyable activity pulls you through the less initially appealing one.
Smart. What else makes habits attractive?
Well, social norms are incredibly powerful. We humans, we really want to fit in.
Yeah, tribal creatures.
Totally. So we tend to imitate the habits of 3 groups. The close, family, friends. The many, our cultural group, society. And the powerful, those with status we admire.
So if your friends all smoke, it's harder not to start.
We're easier to start, unfortunately, yeah. Surrounding yourself with people who have the habits you want can make those habits seem more attractive and normal.
And it's also about mindset, right? Reframing.
Absolutely. Changing how you think about a habit. Instead of seeing exercise as a chore, maybe reframe it as time to de-stress or build strength.
Or like the meditation example, mind wandering isn't failure, it's an opportunity to practice focus.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Shifting the narrative makes it feel less like a burden and more like a benefit.
Okay, law 3. Make it easy. This seems straightforward. Reduce friction.
It is, but it's crucial. The more energy a habit requires, the less likely we are to do it, especially consistently. Our brains are wired for conservation of energy.
And here, clear distinguishes between motion and action, right?
Yes. This is important. Motion is planning, researching, strategizing. Action is actually doing the habit.
And we can get stuck in motion.
Oh, easily. It feels productive, like you're making progress. But motion alone doesn't produce results. Often it's just a way to delay starting, maybe because we fear failure.
Guilty as charged sometimes. Researching the perfect workout plan instead of just doing a workout.
We've all been there. That's why he stresses starting small. Ridiculously small. The 2-minute rule.
Right. Whatever the new habit is, scale it down so the very first step takes less than 2 minutes.
Oh, exactly. Read every night becomes read 1 page. Do yoga becomes take out the yoga mat. Run 3 miles becomes put on running shoes.
It sounds almost too simple.
But it works. It lowers the barrier to entry so much that it's hard not to do it. You're just focused on starting. It creates what he calls a gateway habit.
A tiny habit that opens the door to the larger behavior.
Right. And remember, standardize before you optimize. You can't improve a habit that doesn't even exist yet. Just show up first. Make it easy to show up.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And technology can help here too, right? Both ways.
For sure. Tech makes good habits easier. Online banking, subscription services, streaming workouts. But it also makes bad habits easier sometimes.
True. But we can use it strategically.
Yeah. Think about automating things. Automatic bill pay, retirement savings transfers, using website blockers to make procrastination harder, reducing the number of decisions you have to make.
Taking willpower out of the equation where possible.
Exactly. And there's also priming the environment for future use.
Okay, what's that? Like laying out workout clothes.
That's a perfect example. It's about setting up your space so the next action is easier. Resetting the room, as one person called it, putting things back, preparing ingredients for tomorrow's meal. Making the easy choice the path of least resistance.
It's all about reducing that friction for the future you.
And recognizing those decisive moments, those small choices, like picking up your phone versus picking up a book, that set the trajectory for the next hour or even the whole day.
Little hinges that swing big doors.
Well put, yeah.
Okay, finally, law 4. Make it satisfying. This is about the reward.
Yes. We repeat what feels good. The challenge is, many good habits have delayed rewards.
Like exercise, healthy eating, saving money. The big payoff is way down the road.
But our brains evolved to prioritize immediate gratification. That cookie now feels better than potential weight loss later.
It's that battle between present you and future you. Present you wants the instant reward.
Always. So the trick is to find ways to give present you an immediate win for doing the good habit. Make it satisfying now.
How? Like giving yourself a treat.
That's one way what Claire calls reinforcement, giving yourself an immediate reward after completing the habit. But he adds a caveat. Choose rewards that align with the identity you're trying to build.
Ah. So don't reward yourself for exercising with a giant sundae if your goal is weight loss.
Probably not the best alignment, no. Maybe putting money towards a future vacation or enjoying a relaxing bath. Something that reinforces the positive direction.
Makes sense. What else?
Habit tracking. Just the simple act of tracking your progress, ticking a box on a calendar, using an app can be incredibly satisfying.
Why does that work?
It provides immediate visual proof that you're putting in the effort. It makes progress tangible. And you get that little dopamine hit from maintaining the streak. You don't want to break the chain.
The tracking itself becomes a mini reward.
Exactly. It closes the feedback loop much faster than waiting for the long-term outcome.
And on the flip side, how do you make bad habits unsatisfying?
One powerful tool is a habit contract.
Sounds serious.
It can be. It's basically a formal agreement you make, often with an accountability partner, where you state the habit you'll avoid and the consequences if you fail.
Like having to pay a friend money if you skip a workout.
Something like that. Knowing there's an immediate unpleasant consequence, social or financial, makes the bad habit much less appealing. Just having an accountability partner, someone who knows your goals and checks in, can increase the cost of slacking off.
Adds social pressure. Makes
Yeah.
it unsatisfying to fail.
Right. Raises the stakes for present you.
Okay, those are the 4 laws.
Yeah.
Clear also touches on some more advanced stuff.
Yeah, a few things like
Uh-huh.
working with your genes.
Meaning, pick habits you're naturally good at.
Sort of. It's acknowledging that genetics do play a role. Some things will feel more naturally satisfying or come easier to you based on your predispositions. So, aligning your ambitions with your aptitudes can make sticking with habits easier. Play a game where the odds are in your favor.
But it's not an excuse. Genes aren't destiny.
Absolutely not. Even if you have a natural talent, you still need the habits, the practice, the consistency. Effort is always required.
Got it. What else?
The Goldilocks rule. This is about motivation. We tend to be most motivated when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our abilities.
Not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. Just challenging enough to be engaging, but not so hard that we get discouraged. He suggests the sweet spot is around 4% beyond your current comfort zone.
Finding that optimal level of challenge.
But then comes the danger. Boredom.
Even if you find the sweet spot, eventually things can feel routine.
Yes. And Clear argues that boredom, not failure, is perhaps the biggest threat to long-term success. Things stop being novel and exciting.
So what's the key then?
Persisting even when you're bored. Showing up when it doesn't feel fun or new anymore. He says successful people feel boredom just like everyone else. They just learn to push through it. You have to, quote, fall in love with boredom.
Embrace the grind.
Pretty much. And related to that, he warns about the downside of good habits, ironically.
How can good habits have a downside?
When they become too tied to your identity. You become so proud of being, say, a runner or a minimalist that it prevents you from seeing flaws or exploring other areas of growth. Your identity becomes rigid.
So you need to keep reassessing. Not let the label define you too strictly.
Exactly. Stay flexible, keep learning. And one last point he makes is about self-control.
That it's overrated.
Not necessarily overrated, but it's a short-term strategy. Relying on pure willpower to constantly fight cravings is exhausting and ultimately unsatisfying because you're just ignoring the urge, not resolving it.
So it's better to use the 4 laws to reshape the habit loop itself.
That's the idea. Make the good habits obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, and the bad ones the opposite. Design your systems so self-control isn't needed as often. He also loops back to desire craving drives the response. And he offers this interesting formula.
Yeah.
Satisfaction, liking, wanting.
Liking minus wanting.
Right. Meaning, often our unhappiness doesn't come from what we have, but from wanting more than what we currently like or appreciate. Managing expectations is key. Satisfaction is relative.
Wow. Okay. Lots to unpack there.
Definitely.
So let's try to wrap this up. Key takeaways from this deep dive into atomic habits. First, small habits. Huge impact over time because of compounding.
Right. Focus on those 1% changes. Second, prioritize building effective systems over just chasing distant goals.
And the core framework,
Yeah.
or the 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. That's your toolkit for change.
And don't forget those advanced points. Play to your strength, find the Goldilocks zone, push through boredom, and don't let your identity become a cage.
It really feels like understanding these fundamentals gives you, the listener, a really practical, non-overwhelming way to approach personal growth.
Yeah, it's about small, smart changes that create those ripple effects, actionable knowledge.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. Thinking about those 4 laws, obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, which one feels like the biggest lever you could pull right now? For a habit you want to build, or maybe one you want to break?
Yeah, what's one small tweak based on those laws that you could experiment with this week?
What tiny change could start a significant positive cascade in your life? Something to think about. We really encourage you to take these ideas and play with them. See what works for you.